The stories shared on It Takes Balls are unique to the individual sharing. Always speak with your trusted medical provider for treatment options specific to you. Welcome back to It Takes Balls, presented by Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation. It's already March 1st, 2024, which is hard to believe. Today I'm joined by Ken Lane. He's joining from Oklahoma. And I just want to say, Ken, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for your patience. I know you applied to be on so long ago. So thank you for sticking it out.
Thanks. It actually came faster than I thought. So it's a pleasure to be here.
So let's talk about Oklahoma before we get into testicular cancer. I always see the memes. It says, "What goes on here?" talking about that little skinny part. So what goes on there?
Oh, up in the Panhandle?
Yeah.
I've only actually been up through the Panhandle once when I was about 7, when my dad let me pick which way we drove to Colorado. He gave me the map and he's like, you get to pick, because usually you drive through Kansas to get there. It's more direct. But I'm like, I'm also wondering what goes on in there. And the answer is absolutely nothing. Super flat. I feel like you can actually see, what is it, New Mexico and Colorado at the same time. So no, absolutely nothing. I think there was a town called Beaver, Oklahoma, or something like that that's in the Panhandle. And yeah, it's you're starting to get into the more flatter Sierras out there. And so really, I couldn't tell you. Hey, I'm out more and more northeast Oklahoma. So it's in the opposite end of the state.
I'll take it, though. You're our resident Oklahoma expert here. So thank you for the clarification. All right, but let's talk about your testicular cancer, which is why we're chatting today. So you were stage 1?
Yeah, stage 1. I joke and say I'm stage 0.5 because of how early it was caught. So yeah, easily stage 1.
So talk about like how early it was caught, because I know you said in your application that you were regularly checking yourself for years. So take me back to, how did you even know self-exams were a thing?
Well, it all started in, I'm going to say 2012. I went through kind of a very emotionally tumultuous divorce at the time. I'm now happily remarried, kid, all that stuff. So that's, completely fine now. But I kind of went internal as far as emotionally, and I became like a pretty hardcore hypochondriac for a while. I was living alone. I was in my own head. I wasn't in a good place. But I was just convinced all the time that, oh, surely you got something wrong with you. Surely something physical is going on with you, to where like I became almost like cancer became a phobia, I don't know why. I guess that's just one of the easiest things to be afraid of when you don't have anything else to actually be afraid of. But as I was in my research process for how to tell if you have this or how to tell if you have that, there was a song that I stumbled upon called "Do Your Testicles Feel Okay?" And it was to the tune of "Do Your Ears Hang Low?" And the video is on YouTube still, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember exactly which organization put it out, but they basically go through all of the slang words for testicles, and it's like, you got your balls, you got your nads, you got your tackle, and and it's a funny song, but it was, "Do your testicles feel okay?" That was the chorus. And I got stuck in my head. It's a real good earworm, but I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I need to be checking out testicles at the time. So I just kind of added that to another thing that I do every month. And also, I think I was first exposed to the whole thing, though, through Tom Green, whenever he went through his testicular cancer thing. And that was when I was probably an early teenager. And he went through the whole shebang way worse than I would. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want that. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to check myself. And then come years and years later, after I was already remarried, this is 2017 by then, one of my exams, I started to feel like something's a little heavier on that side. Well, actually, wait, I left out a part of that story. I thought something was happening with me at all, because I was also obsessing about everything with my body. This is when I was single and not mentally great at the time. I thought something was going on with me just because I noticed that one of my testicles was smaller than the other. I noticed that I think it was that my left testicle was smaller than my right testicle. And I went to the doctor about it, and he said, no, that's perfectly normal. That's fine. You're in your own head, but good for looking out. So fast forward years later to 2017, I then all of a sudden noticed that both of my testicles are the same size. One used to be smaller before, so that was a little bit concerning. And I brought it up to my doctor. And again, he was like, I don't really know if there's anything wrong. That one does feel a little bit firmer than the right one does feel a little more firmer than the left. And they're the same size. So I'm going to refer you to have a sonogram. He's like, it's probably nothing. Could be anything. And so I went and had the sonogram, and then following, I think it was the same day of the sonogram, I got a call back from the primary care, and he said, well, there's a mass in there. And he just said, could be cancer. And I can't actually remember the rest of the conversation, because whenever you hear something like that on the phone, like at work,
Yeah.
could be cancer. It's like, and I always say it's like someone hit the delay pedal. Could be cancer, 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 cancer. And all of a sudden that just becomes a part of the whole rest of your day. So I went to a urologist about 2 days later. And when I walked in, he had like a grimace look on his face because he had the scan. And he was like, oh man, you must, I saw your scan. You must be in a lot of pain. And I'm like, no. He's like, what are you talking about? I saw the scan. You must, like, no, it just feels heavier, So he goes, could be testicular cancer, could be some kind of necrosis. Can't really do a biopsy without exposing everything else to the rest of the body. And so what I'm going to do is schedule you to have an orchiectomy. And actually, he didn't even tell me what the name of it was at the time. I've since figured out how to say it. And I thought, oh, cool, I guess I'm going to have a surgery that's pretty serious. When we're going to have it, like a couple of weeks out or something. And this was a Thursday. And he was like, no, Monday. We're going to have it Monday. Mm-hmm. So scheduled me to have that orchiectomy on Monday. And I took the rest of the week to recover. And I was back to work the next Monday. So after that, it was just surveillance scans they're like, well, actually, after they had the orchiectomy, Monday, he brought me into the doctor's office to go, well, I'm going to go over to the results of the dissection of the testicle that they removed. And he goes, well, good news, bad news. Bad news, it is cancer. Good news is, if I was going to have any cancer, this is the cancer I would have. And it was like classic seminoma, no sign of spread in the suprapubic cord. Very good prognosis. We're just going to put you on surveillance. And I had some scans. They had some additional scans because there was a nodule on one of my lungs that they were a little concerned about, just to keep an eye on it. But they took the scan, they kept taking the scans, but they noticed that the nodule wasn't getting any bigger. It wasn't moving, and they think it probably was completely unrelated. So they go, okay. And now I just go in I had scans every year after that. And then after about the 5-year mark, they're like, we're just going to do chest x-rays and blood work. Even though whenever I had the blood work done the first time around, I guess the tumor was small enough to where it wasn't even showing up in the blood work. So he was like, there's no sign of it in the blood work. So every time we're doing blood work, I don't know what we're going to see. It would have to be pretty bad to show up again. So, and that's where we are now. I'm still just doing annual surveillance with, I think, just x-rays and blood work.
Yeah. And I mean, this is an important story to tell, I think, because you're kind of like, quote unquote, like maybe the poster child for early detection. I mean, your case is exactly what, TCAF and all these organizations want out of self-exams. So kudos to you, because, I don't know that we're going to prevent testicular cancer, but catching it early is the early detection is key.
And I know I kind of took the story and ran with it if you had any questions in the meantime throughout. But yeah, it was to the point where I almost have what I later found was called, what is it, survivor's guilt,
Mm-hmm.
to where my cancer was caught so early that I almost don't even consider myself a cancer survivor. It's a weird label to have because it was caught so early that I almost had a big head about it for not a big head about it for a while, but I'm like, why can't everybody just catch it super early and do something about it? And then talking with other TC survivors, they're like, hey man, it doesn't always show up the way it did with you. It can be a whole lot more complicated. So I was very humbled by that, and I know that everybody goes through their own thing. So there's no way you can just be like, if everyone would just be checking monthly, we could just take care of this and it would be a non-issue. But that's really not the case. And but all I can do is say, here's something very simple that you can do every month. And actually, for a while, I was talking back and forth with Justin. What's his name? He has a very funny last name, Berbickley. I don't know. He has the Ballsy Sense of Tumor blog.
Yeah.
And we had put together a kind of a campaign to kind of help people check their testicles. We called Take a Second for the Boys, to where it was, I actually didn't know how to set up to where someone could click on it and add an event to their own calendar that's from somebody else's calendar without it messing up your own calendar, I guess. And he goes, I know how to do that. We'll host it. And it just put a reminder on people's Google calendars on the 2nd of every month, because it doesn't really matter what day of the month it is, as long as it's once a month, to literally take a second in the shower, take a second on the second for the boys. And I do need to follow up with that and kind of re-up on things that were going on. The website was up through Weebly and things like that. It was kind of a free website, but yeah, if people would take a second on the second or any day of the week, but I find the second works good because the first is always kind of chaotic, to do a self-exam, then that would actually be a pretty good way to go about it. But I don't know.
Yeah. Talk about you said you were kind of a hypochondriac. How did this diagnosis did it kind of validate your feelings of being a hypochondriac? And then how did you feel moving forward after your diagnosis and treatment?
A little bit, to where it definitely didn't help being a hypochondriac beforehand, because I think the worst thing that can happen for a hypochondriac is to have their fears validated. I mean, it's made me more health conscious. Before then, I was about 35 to 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And the worst thing a hypochondriac can be is also a hypochondriac who doesn't take care of themselves very well when it comes to diet and exercise and things like that. It has gotten to the point where I still have a bit of white coat syndrome whenever I go into the doctor. Well, even giving blood and platelets, they'll take my blood pressure, and it's just because it's kind of a medical setting. They're like, your blood pressure is pretty high, even though it's low at home, or your heart rate's a little high. And it's terrible because it kind of makes you nervous about other unrelated health exams. It has kind of made me a bit more of a hypochondriac, but I think that there are more suitable ways of coping with health anxiety in a healthy way that have come to light. I got into mindfulness meditation quite a bit following my cancer experience, and that's helped out considerably. I mean, I wish they taught that in public schools, like from an early age. It would help people with their focus and dealing with anxiety and emotions and things like that, and also in tune with their own bodies. But it hasn't helped, but it has helped me understand my own mind a bit more in hindsight, which has helped with the anxiety about that. But again, it's really easy to try and rationalize any type of hypochondria you might have, any type of health anxiety. But I guess the best thing you can do is to go speak to an actual medical professional, not Dr. Google and not Dr. AI these days. There's a lot of people trying to get an AI to diagnose their symptoms. I'm like, go talk to a doctor. They have experience. They're going to be able to tell you either whether or not you need to seek further opinions and treatments and things like that. and quit Googling your symptoms. Just go see a doctor.
I will say that I think IU needs to invest in an AI for Dr. Einhorn because that man's answering emails all
Oh,
day
yeah.
long. So they just need to take his
Oh, I
knowledge
bet.
and I don't know, maybe one day. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate on the kind of meditation stuff that you do, just for anybody listening that might want a little bit of a nugget of information on what they can do in that regard?
Yeah. Um, I've always been really ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in middle school. I was put on Adderall and actually hated it. All the side effects of it, did not like it. Took myself off of it. You're not supposed to take yourself off stuff, but I really didn't like the effects of how it was happening. And combining the ADHD with kind of the negative mental headspace that follows some kind of a traumatic life event like a divorce or cancer would do, I started looking more into some kind of form of meditation to help me understand when I'm becoming distracted, either by a thought or an emotion that really takes the wheel of your mind and runs with it. Because I don't know how many times anybody's been laying in bed just ruminating about either the something bad that happened in the past or what something bad could happen in the future, when all mindfulness really does is asks you to be, well, as the meditation teacher Ram Dass would say, be here now. And that's really the source of so many problems that people have with anxiety and depression, is that they're not just simply present. They're imagining all of the bad things that can happen, and they're in despair over the things that have happened. But mindfulness would simply be a practice of a bicep curl for your present tense, for the present moment. My practice from that was simply a sitting meditation where I focus on my breath and my breathing and center it to where all that I'm attempting to focus on at the time is the sensation of air going into my nostrils and exiting my nostrils. And actually, a book I would really recommend on this, anyone who's looking on getting into mindfulness meditation, there's a book by Dan Harris called Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. And I would recommend the audiobook version of it because there's a lot of guided meditations. It's hard to do a guided meditation when it's written down, but and that really helped me out quite a bit. And that's something that has allowed me to understand my own mind, to where whenever someone is in mental anguish, it's easy to think you are in a place of, you are the anguish pretty much. There's no borderline, but really it's mindfulness meditation allows you to kind of look in on your own mind and see, okay, is this whatever I'm concentrating on or ruminating about something that is helpful, something that's constructive, or can I simply choose to be here now in the present moment and see that maybe things aren't so bad, or that we can find a better way out of this situation instead of just riding the hamster wheel of rumination, in the middle of the night. So,
Yeah, I could definitely use some of that. I know, like, I had a MRI on my brain, maybe a couple years ago now, but I totally forgot about it. And then I was looking at my medical records one night in bed, and like I saw that it had some kind of, I don't know, gray cyst or something that they said was totally normal. But of course I'm
yeah.
like, oh frick, like that's why I've had a headache. Like it's all going downhill. Like I've got a tumor in my brain now. Like, so yeah. I
Yeah,
could
that
definitely
can
use
that can totally take the wheel. I don't look at any of my own scans ever because I don't understand them, and I figure that like somebody with a much better understanding of that has looked at it, and they probably would have said something. And it's, I mean, that it sounds bad to say like just leaving your fate in someone else's hands, but it's better than my own hands a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, maybe that would be some good advice too, is just to stay off of my chart or something. Cause it's hard not to ruminate, as you would say, over the results that you get.
Yeah, it's also bad for if you've already had the thing and you've tackled it and you've taken care of it. Sometimes I come across my old, my medical records or whenever I have to talk about the fact that, yes, I had a history of testicular cancer on some kind of new medical paperwork, and that triggers a trauma, you know. But when you're able to look at it with a level head and the wisdom to see that, okay, well, this shouldn't be triggering me now. It's something that I've tackled and something that it's a part of me now, but it's in the history of me and it's not necessarily in my future. Then I can move forward.
So moving forward with kind of, you said you became more healthy afterward. You're now within the last few years a runner. So I know you're doing like some kind of running challenge. So tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Following after, actually it was pretty kind of a funny story. After I had my testicular cancer, I was asking them, okay, what does this mean for my fertility going forward? He said, well, you still have the one, you should be all right. I know some people have had problems with low testosterone in the past and things like that, but I said, yeah, you shouldn't have any problems. And if you feel like you might, come talk to us. Well, I had the testicular cancer removed in, I think it was March of 2017. And then in September of 2017 is when my wife became pregnant with our son. A couple of years later after that, and actually my dad, whenever my dad heard the news of that, he goes, way to go, lefty. I'm like, it is weird to know which testicle you've come from. But
yeah, didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, I'm going to tell him one day. It's going to be weird. But shortly after that, I remembered there was a picture of me holding my son. We were hanging out at some party or something like that. And I noticed that I had this kind of belly hanging out from under the shirt I was wearing. Like, that's not a great look. And I also was just tired of coming home from work, not doing anything health, like any type of physical fitness, not caring about my diet at all, and just feeling kind of blah all the time. And one day I didn't notice, I can't remember where I first saw it, but I think it was a YouTube channel called Charisma on Demand or something like that, where they were actually talking about mindfulness meditation. But the guy was saying, when I really like to do meditation is following a jump rope workout. And I was like, a jump rope workout? People actually use jump rope for like regular fitness. I thought that was a schoolyard toy or something that boxers,
I have a friend actually who did over a million jumps last year. So shout out Kelly. Sorry to interrupt.
Nice. No, that's fine. That's where I was going. I got really into jump rope. Just jumping in my driveway, jumping in my garage. I got pretty decent at it as far as just and it wasn't from that point. It really wasn't too much of I need to get more healthy. I need to, lose some weight. It was like, that looks fun. That looks like something fun to do. Another hobby, another activity to take on. So I just bought an Amazon jump rope, probably still the most expensive one I've ever bought at $10. And with shoes that were not good. And I think I had to use swim trunks because I didn't even own athletic shorts at the time, and just started trying to skip rope in my driveway, just making puddles of sweat, probably annoying the neighbors. And at first it was really hard because I was about 235 at the time of 6'2". But slowly but surely I got to where I could skip a little longer and I could, without having to take a break, and got to where it was pretty easy. And then later on, I had a coworker that I'm still good friends with, that I still work with. And she is a marathoner runner, and we were just exchanging notes on fitness and things like that. And it seemed kind of interesting to me. And she hadn't recommended anything for me to read. I think while I was skipping rope, I started listening to audiobooks of the book Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. And even if you're not a runner, that's just a great book. He's a great writer. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try that. And I just started doing these little slow jog about the speed of walking type of jogging around the 1K park by my house. And then my stamina got better, my endurance got better, and then I got a little faster. And now it's really become something that I used to say, there's these people that say, oh, I just don't feel like myself if I don't get my 5 miles in the morning. And I was like, shut up. But now I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get it. I don't want to be that guy, but I became that guy. But the running challenge that I've been doing lately has been, I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the challenge that I made for myself is to run every single street in the city, which is a total of about 1,600 streets and a little over 2,000 miles, I know. And as of this recording, I'm at about 7.5% completed with all of the named streets. And that just means all the named streets I have run their full length, but I've touched on about 1,400 of those at some point in time. So if you look at a map, it's a big cluster. I have there's a website called citystrides.com where you can plug in your Strava data and it shows you every single run you've ever done on one map in an area. And as I started to see all the streets that I had done in my town, I'm like, let's see if we can start to black this out really, as a personal challenge. And now I've been going at it for like really intentionally trying to do that since probably June of this year or July of this year. And there's a couple other people that are at it too. And it's become a little bit competitive and friendly competition when it comes to that. But that was a challenge that I saw of, I'm never going to be the fastest runner. I've run a marathon and it wasn't that fun. But I think what I could do is something that's it's a project. Also, I'm not a huge fan of racing in the first place. And to me, running is very much a solitary thing to where I like to do it by myself, in the quiet, not listening to music or podcasts or anything like that. Just, again, being mindful, kind of making running a meditation. And so that's where I've taken that so far. And it's become also a great vehicle for sharing different causes that I'm passionate about. One of them being testicular cancer prevention. Another one being blood and platelet donation. I became a platelet donor recently. That was just because they said, we have a lot of blood donors now. We don't have a lot of platelet donors. You want to try that? And I'm like, I guess. And now they won't leave me alone. I do that about every 2 or 3 weeks. And it's actually become really rewarding, very fulfilling, something to do, except from getting scar tissue now from it, but good problem to have. But those are the two main causes that also I've been able to talk more about as more people have been interested in the project of me running every single street, including like the local newspaper followed me around for a couple runs. I think I drove that photographer pretty crazy. He didn't know exactly which way I was going. But there's a story about that on a YouTube channel that I have. And no, it's been really rewarding, very fulfilling.
That's awesome. I think I'm inspired and I'm going to run all 5 streets in my neighborhood and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Nice. If you look at them on a map after you're done, it'll look like real satisfying. You'll just be like, I did that.
Well, thank you for raising awareness of testicular cancer through that. I mean, that's incredible. So shout out.
I have to. Is
there anything else that you want to add that I did not ask about?
Not really. I think I got pretty talkative. If there's any niche questions about that too, no, really just those. I'm happy that I had an opportunity to say, if somebody's looking for a way to give back, if you feel like you're a survivor and you're a healthy person, one wonderful thing you can do for your fellow cancer people that are battling cancer now too is to consider giving platelets through your American Red Cross or wherever else they donate platelets, but they're the main ones. It takes about 2 hours to sit down. They put headphones on you. You can watch Netflix the whole time. And before you know it, you've given some platelets, and you can do it every 2 weeks because they don't actually take blood out. And you usually feel pretty okay when you stand up. The worst part is that you've been sitting for 2 hours, so your legs probably fall asleep a little bit. But I would encourage people to give that a shot because there is a desperate need for platelet donors right now. And it really helps cancer patients in particular in their recovery process as their chemotherapy and radiation really damage your ability to have proper platelet production. So I would encourage people to do that.
Do you know by chance if you can give platelets after having had chemo?
I believe there is a period of time after, there is kind of a wait, I believe, but I would look into it specifically with the Red Cross. They'd be able to tell you if you are able to. That was something that I looked up too, especially, I never had chemotherapy. I never had radiation or any of the additional surgeries outside of an orchiectomy, which I feel very blessed about. But I think there is a waiting period, but it subsides after a while and that you're then able to do so.
Yeah, you can definitely give blood like after a year, after having had chemo, like whole blood, I think is what they call it. Is that whole blood? Does that sound right? I didn't know about platelets though. So I'll look into that too, because I've definitely given blood after chemo, but I'll look into platelets. So thank you for the awareness of that.
It's very rewarding, very fulfilling, but they will hassle you. I mean, as far as like you give a couple times and they're like, let's keep calling this guy, but it's for a good cause.
Yeah. Where can people find you? I know we connected, I think on LinkedIn.
I'm not big on social media very much. I made an Instagram page solely dedicated to the running project of running every single street in Tulsa. The handle for that is every single street Tulsa. And I have a YouTube channel that is it's more about natural fitness as far as feeling good and moving naturally. That's called Kinetic, K-E-N, Kinetic, like my name, Ken. But if you go to youtube.com @Kinetic channel, I have jump rope tutorials. I have running related content. I have some product reviews, things like that I've kind of been into, and some just health conscious things like that too on YouTube. So Kinetic channel.
Sweet. Ken Lane, thank you so much for being on It Takes Balls.
No, it was a real treat. Thank you.
For more information and resources for your testicular cancer journey, visit testicularcancerawarenessfoundation.org. You can also follow us on social media @TestisCancer. We're on Facebook @Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation.